Colleagues, a quorum is present. We ask everyone present, including those guests in the chamber and the rear, the gallery, to please stand for today's prayer. We ask Assembly Chaplain Father Constantine Papademos to offer today's prayer.
Let us pray. Lord, when we come closer to you, we make a decision to let go of past failures and anything else that holds us back. We seek forgiveness from you, and we know that you have a better future in store for us. Help us to understand, Lord, that you have the ability to work behind the scenes on our behalf. As we approach you in faith, little by little, we will begin to see your invisible power and blessings in a fresh new way. Amen.
We ask everyone present to remain standing and join us in the flag salute. Please join Assemblymember Halderman as she leads us in the pledge.
Colleagues, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, March 8, 2012. The Assembly met at 9 a.m. Honorable Fiona Moss, Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly, presiding. Chief Guard E. Dawson Wilson at the desk, reading clerk Timothy Moore. The reading, the roll was called to Shaji and Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berry Hill, Block, Bloomfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesborough, Conway, Cook, Davis, Dickinson, Donnelly, Ing, Fura, Fong, Fuentes, Furtani, Gaines, Gaggiani, Garrett, Gatto, Gordon, Grove, Hagman, Halderman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Hueso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mansour, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morell, Nastande, Nielsen, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, Moore, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada, Mr. Speaker. By unanimous consent, the regular order of business of the Assembly was dispensed with this for the legislative day. By unanimous consent, the following Assembly members were granted leaves of absences for the day on legislative business. Assembly Member Mendoza V. Manuel Perez on personal business and waiving per diem. Assembly Member Fletcher on active military duty deployment and waiving per diem. Assembly Member Gurrell, journal page 452 is pursuant to Assembly rules, the following explanations of absences were ordered printed in a journal. The Honorable John A. Perez, Speaker of the Assembly of State Capitol, Room 219, Sacramento, California. Dear Mr. Speaker, I respectfully request information to waive excuse from Assembly check-in session Wednesday, March 7, 2012. I have been asked to participate in the Lifeline screening event sponsored by the Long Beach Memorial Hospital. Thank you in advance for your consideration of my request. Should you have any questions, please contact Debbie Collins at 916-319-2056. Sincerely, Tony Mendoza, Assembly Member, 56th District. Honorable John A. Perez, Speaker of the Assembly, State Capitol, Room 219, Sacramento, California. Dear Speaker Perez, I respectfully request anyone to be excused from check-in session on Wednesday, March 7, 2012. I have legislative matters to attend to.
Mr. Calderon moves and Ms. Conway seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentation of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Rule 45.5 to allow members Bradford, Monning, Gatto, Gordon, Wachowski, and Speaker John Perez to have guests and photographers on the floor.
Without objection.
Also, request unanimous consent to suspend Rule 118 to allow Assembly Member Wachowski to have a guest at his desk at the same time as he has a photographer.
Without objection.
And I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assembly Members Manuel Perez, Nastante, and Williams to speak on Adjourn in Memory today.
Without objection.
All right, Mr. Speaker, there are four items for committee to committee referrals, and one there is an objection. What I'd like to do is take up those matters where there is no objection and then come back to AB 1833.
You may proceed.
So I'll be doing two separate motions. The first one is, pursuant to Rule 96, I request unanimous consent to refer the following bills to committee. AB 2026, Mr. Fuentes, from the Revenue and Tax Committee to the Arts, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Internet Media Committee, and then back to the Revenue and Tax Committee.
Without objection.
Request unanimous consent to refer AB 2037 by Davis from the Rev and Tax Committee to Jobs, Economic Development, and Economy Committee, and then back to Rev and Tax.
Without objection.
And finally, on this motion, I request unanimous consent to refer AB 2118 by Butler from the Transportation Committee to the Utilities and Commerce Committee.
Without objection.
I'd like to also suspend Rule 96, Mr. Speaker, and request unanimous consent to do so to refer AB 1833 by night from the Natural Resources Committee to the Public Employee Retirement and Social Security Committee.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do object to this. I'd like to have Assemblymember Might speak to this matter. It's a committee referral direct from the committee.
Okay, Mr. Calderon has made a motion. Mr. Calderon has the position to open on the motion, and after that we can open it to debate. We need a second to the motion, though, first. Mr. Fuhrer seconds. Mr. Calderon, you may open if you wish.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this is routine in terms of committee-to-committee referrals. I'm not persuaded that any other referral should be made at this time, and so I request that we refer Natural Resources by Mr. Knight from the Natural Resources Committee, AB 1813, from Natural Resources to the Public Employee Retirement and Social Security Committee.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I request that AB 1833 be referred to the Education Committee pending passage of Natural Resources Committee. Referrals to the Natural Resources Committee and Education Committees are the most appropriate referrals for AB 1333 because these committees have the jurisdiction over the most considerable policy contained in the bill. All bills relating to state lands fall under the explicit jurisdiction of the Natural Resources Committee. This jurisdiction is printed by the Rules Committee and supported by numerous referrals.
Okay, excuse me real quick.
Mr. Speaker, we have some special guests to welcome to the chambers today, and with Mr. Knight's permission, I would like to put this over until we make the introduction of the ambassador from Canada and party, and then we can come back to this.
Okay, seeing no objection, Mr. Speaker, you are recognized.
Thank you. Members, I rise to introduce and welcome Ambassador Gary Doer to the legislature as part of our commemoration of Canada Day at the Capitol. Every year, the legislature is pleased to celebrate our long-standing ties of history, commerce, and culture with the nation of Canada. Those ties have brought prosperity to the people of Canada and to the people of California and are further underscored by our shared commitment to building a healthier, more prosperous, and more sustainable economy. We're pleased to welcome Ambassador Doer, who was appointed by Prime Minister Harper to serve as Canada's ambassador to the United States in 2009. He began his service to the people of Canada in 1986 when he was elected to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. He ultimately became the leader of his party and then Premier of the province of Manitoba, a position he held for 9 years. During his time in office, he worked to expand access to quality, affordable medical care for Manitobans and fiscal responsibility, a central priority of his administration. As ambassador to the United States, he's worked every day to strengthen ties between the United States and California in particular, and we're honored to host him as part of our commemoration of Canada Day at the Capitol. He's joined clearly by a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and by the Consuls General of San Francisco and Los Angeles, Cassie Doyle and David Franson. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Gary Doer to the Assembly.
Okay, colleagues, we're going to go back now. We're going to go back to the motion that is being debated. This is the motion by Mr. Calderon, seconded by Mr. Fuhrer, to refer AB 1833 by Mr. Knight from the Natural Resources Committee to the PERS Committee. It's debatable as to the propriety of the reference. Mr. Knight, you were speaking, and Mr. Knight, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill that we're debating on the floor is AB 1833. I believe it should be passed to the Education Committee, pending its passage by Natural Resources. The AB 1833 is a bill that is designed to help the kids. It's a bill that talks about the sale of state funds. It's a bill that should be appropriately in the Education Committee. It's a far more appropriate venue to determine how the educational needs of our students can be achieved than sending the bill to the PERS, where the only question raised will be whether the teachers' retirement system needs the money. Everyone knows that these are tough economic times. Every state system needs money, and this question to the policy of 1833. If we're going to pit the retirement funds against our students, I think the students should be our primary concern. I ask for the support in referring AB 1833 to the Education Committee, pending passage by the Natural Resources Committee.
Mr. Calderon?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The STIR system is an issue of vital importance, not only to the teachers of the state, but also to the state of California. And I can't imagine a bill dealing with the teacher retirement system not going to and being heard by the Public Employee Retirement and Social Security system. And so with that, I ask for an aye vote on my motion.
Okay, this is a motion to refer the bill as described. Mr. Calderon asks for an aye vote. Mr. Knight asks for a no vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 43, noes 21. The motion passes. Okay, we're going to move now back to guest introductions. Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. It's my pleasure to have joining me on the floor today my wife, Dana, our daughter, Laura, and our granddaughter, Riley Rosalia. And I'd like to ask them to come forward here under the arc. Thank you, members, for welcoming them.
Okay, colleagues, we have some additional guest introductions. If you could indulge me for 1 minute, I would like to introduce my guest. That is, if you could turn your attention to the rear of the chamber. We have with us a leader from the Los Angeles Korean American community who's also a state commissioner appointed by our own Mr. Speaker. So in the rear of the chambers, everybody, is Dr. Hong Byum Ri. Our next guest introduction, Mr. Gordon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members and colleagues, it is my honor and privilege today as chair of the LGBT Legislative Caucus to introduce a delegation of guests from Israel. These are individuals who are active in the LGBT community and community programs and services in Israel. Let me introduce them to you. Ms. Irit Zveli Efrat, who is the CEO of Shosan, Ms. Efrat Rotem, Mr. Avner Daphne, who is the CEO of the Israeli Gay Youth Organization, Ms. Gal Deutsch, Director of Programs for the Israel Gay Youth Organization, Mr. Adir Steiner, longtime LGBT leader who sought survivors' death benefits as a surviving spouse of a military officer. After a long court battle, the Israeli Supreme Court recognized his partnership as a legal marriage. Also joining us is Ms. Iris Saskova, a member of a support organization for parents and family of LGBT Israelis. And they are accompanied by Mr. Ohad Salman, the media director from the Israeli consulate in San Francisco. We welcome them to the chamber of the Assembly, and I invite all the members to join us after the floor session for a meet and greet with these guests in room 317. Again, please join me in welcoming the delegation from Israel.
If you could direct your attention to Mr. Bradford, he's going to introduce a guest who not too long ago had me quaking in my boots, and that is the dean of my former alma mater, or my current alma mater. Mr. Bradford, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're here to celebrate 100 years of Loyola Marymount University with the theme Learn, Lead, Serve, in recognition to 100 years that LMU has served the greater Los Angeles community. The theme resonates across the university stakeholders and constituents as it encompasses the breadth and diversity of the university's past, present, and future. They're focusing on 4 areas: academic excellence. In 2009-2010, LMU was named the top producer of Fulbright Awards among institutions with master's degree programs by the Chronicle of Higher Education. The Jesuit and Marymount traditions, educating the whole person. The education of the whole person is achieved in a learning environment that invigorates rigorous inquiry, creative imagination, reflective engagement with society, and a commitment to the fashioning of a more humane and just world. Diversity and interculturalism. The university understands diversity and interculturalism as a fundamental aspect of its mission in identifying where people of all backgrounds come together to speak, learn, listen, debate, and flourish, and social justice providing opportunities and community service. Their 20-year master plan will generate $1.7 billion in economic activity in the surrounding communities, and they are currently generated $443 million annually in economic activity. LMU President David Burkham, members, can I have your attention? Has been a critical part of this mission in his capacities as interim president, executive vice president, and provost at LMU. He began his career in education more than 30 years ago and was elected to university's 15th president on October 4th, 2010 by a unanimous decision by the board of LMU Board of Trustees. On the financial front, he has declared the end of over-reliance on tuition and increases to finance the university's operations. He's a native of Los Angeles, earned his BA in political science from Occidental College in 1973, has an MA in education administration from Cal State Long Beach in 1978. He's married with his lovely wife, Chris, and they have 2 children. I welcome David Burkham, president of LMU University.
Okay.
And I felt to recognize Senator Ted Lieu, who's also part of this recognition today as well. Thank
you. Mr. Nielsen.
Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, join me in welcoming to the California State Assembly the good friends of mine, the local businessman John Mayer, his wife Mary, and their daughter Tiffany, who will be doing an internship for me this summer. John, Mary, and Tiffany.
Now please direct your attention to Mr. Wykowski, who has a very special guest introduction.
It's my mother, Helen Wykowski from Fremont, California, is right here.
Business on the daily file. There is no second reading. Okay, Assembly third reading. File items 2 and 3 pass and retain. File item 4, ACR 108. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 108 by Assemblymember Wykowski and others relative to Girl Scouts.
Mr. Wykowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. Today I rise in support of Assembly Concurrent Resolution 108, which recognizes the momentous occasion of the existence of the Girl Scouts of America's 100-year anniversary. On this day in 2012, Juliette Gordon Low convened the first troop meeting of Girl Scouts in the United States of America. Since its founding, 50 million girls have participated in Girl Scouts during their childhood. As a brother of 5 Girl Scouts, 2 of them are here today with us, with my mother. I grew up with a firsthand knowledge of how membership helps girls develop courage, confidence, and character, and makes the world a better place, makes them leaders in our state and in our communities. Please join me in congratulating the Girl Scouts of America, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and I want to commend Mr. Wieckowski for bringing this resolution to the floor. As the father of 2 Girl Scouts, one a Gold Awardee and one a Junior Girl Scout, and the proud spouse of a Girl Scout leader, and I actually happen to be an adult member of Girl Scout Troop 981 in my own capacity and a co-cookie chair for about 10 years. I'm proud to rise in support of this resolution. I also am proud to represent the community in the country with the highest percentage of girls who start out as brownies who end up with their gold award. The highest percentage of girls who achieve the gold award in the country is in my district, and I'm proud to congratulate all of those Girl Scouts. And every year at the gold award ceremony, I like to comment that if the legislature and politicians followed the Girl Scout law, we might just all be better off and solve a few problems, because the Girl Scout law has it all down, and I want to share that with you. I will do my best. Imagine if we did our best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong. How about this one? Responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others. To respect authority, use resources wisely. How about if we did that in California? Make the world a better place and be a sister to every Girl Scout. So I want to commend the Girl Scouts for the wonderful Girl Scout law and 100 years of being a wonderful asset to our great country. Congratulations, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Dr. Haldeman?
On behalf of my Troop 442, on my honor, I will try to serve God, my country, and mankind, and to live by the Girl Scout law. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Huffman.
I'm also a proud dad of a Girl Scout, and the only thing I can add to what has already been said is that if anybody needs Girl Scout cookies, come to me. I request an aye vote as well.
Mr. Morell.
I just want to take this time and wish the Girl Scouts a happy 100th anniversary, and I am also an aye. Thank you.
I was also a brownie and a Girl Scout, sold a lot of cookies, so thank you all for being here. Seeing no further questions or debate, we can just take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. And Mr. Wieckowski has some guests he'd like to introduce. Mr. Wieckowski?
Madam Speaker, I would ask that we have immediate transmittal of the measure to the Senate so they can take it up today.
Without objection, clerk will note.
Thank you. I would like to introduce some Girl Scout leaders who are here. They're leaders in the state of California. In the gallery first, we do have many Girl Scouts at all different levels. If you'll please stand up so the members can see you. They're here from the Heart of California Council, the Northern California Council of Girl Scouts. In the back of the floor, please welcome Pan Salzenberger, who is the CEO of Girl Scouts Heart of Central California, Deborah Holden, who's the Senior Director of Girl Scouts of Northern California, and my sister, Joyce Wieckowski-Stakely, representing Service Unit 630 of Cupertino. I'd like to invite everyone here to join us after session in the Willie Brown Room, where we will share some Girl Scout cookies and refreshments. Please join me once again in welcoming the Girl Scouts of the United States to the floor.
Okay, file item 5, pass and retain. File item 6, ACR 113. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 113 by Assemblymember Dickinson relative to Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The week of March 12, 2012 is Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week. And in recognition of that week, I am wearing a tie that many of you have already noted. Raises awareness. It is an MS tie. The time to end MS. This week encourages California residents to join together in raising awareness and heightening public knowledge of this debilitating disease. MS, of course, is a neurological disease of the central nervous system that affects an estimated 400,000 Americans across the country, and nearly 200 new cases are diagnosed each week nationwide. Here in California, over 40,000 people suffer from this devastating disease. MS is truly a puzzling and unpredictable disease that varies widely in its impact, not only from person to person, but in the same individual at different times. Interestingly, over twice as many women as men have MS, and most are diagnosed in the prime of their lives between the ages of 20 and 50. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society, founded in 1946, funds research, offers services for people with the disease, and provides professional education programs throughout its 50-state network of chapters, including 3 chapters in California. ACR 113, sponsored by the California chapters of the National MS Society, will enhance knowledge throughout the state about the important issues impacting people living with MS and give a voice to all of those affected by this disease. The annual MS Society Walk is the rallying point of the National MS Society and helps raise critical funds that support cutting-edge research, drive change through advocacy, facilitate professional education, and provide programs and services to help people with MS move their lives forward. This year's walk here in Sacramento will be Sunday, April 29th, and I invite all of you who may be here to join us on that very special day. But if you are not here, I hope you will discover where the MS Walk in your own district or own part of California is, to join in and help raise money and create a world free of MS. Some of you know from what I said last year that this is also very personal. Because my father had MS, I lost a sister-in-law to MS. I lost an aunt to MS. And so it has been a very real and acute part of my own life. This is a disease that is devastating, as I've said, but you cannot truly know the full dimensions of its effect until you have experienced it yourself or as a family member of a loved one who has been struck by MS. I hope you will all support this great cause so we can discover the origins of MS and build toward a world free of multiple sclerosis. I would respectfully ask for your aye vote and request that the first roll be open for co-authors.
Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this resolution. Tens of thousands of our constituents and their families across California are affected by multiple sclerosis, and that includes my family. Many of you have had a chance to meet Cindy here on the floor, and you've heard me talk about her. She experienced her first symptoms of MS 25 years ago when my older son was born, and she's still teaching community college, and she's still living a professional life in spite of obstacles that I don't think any of us on this floor could imagine facing every morning when she gets up. And we need to continue to make progress. We need to continue to support the services and the accessibility and other things that people with disabilities need. But the thing that we need to understand about MS that's different from most disabilities is that it's so unpredictable and it's so little understood. Until Cindy was diagnosed, I knew very little about it. And so it's very important that we continue to raise awareness, that we continue to fund research, which the MS Society does, and also provide the supports and services that people living with MS need. At the same time, I called it devastating, I called it chronic, but I think my wife stands as an example that you can live with a chronic illness, but you can only do that if you have a supportive family and community, and it's important for all of us to acknowledge multiple sclerosis and be part of that supporting community. So I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Dickinson would like the first roll to be open for co-authors. First roll open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is for co-authors. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. There are 71 co-authors. We will do a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. Mr. Dickinson, you have some guests.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, there are 10 guests in the gallery up here to my left, your right as you look at the back of the chambers joining us today. They are advocates of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and if they would stand, as I see they are, I'd like to ask that this chamber recognize them and their work.
Okay, file item 7, ACR 114. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 114 by Assemblymember Monning and others relative to California Tsunami Awareness Week.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. ACR 114 establishes the week of March 25th through March 31st as the California Tsunami Awareness Week and seeks to promote the importance of educating and preparing all Californians with the knowledge of how to stay safe in the event of a tsunami. This week will be marked with safety awareness and education programs hosted in communities throughout the state by the California Emergency Management Agency, the California Geologic Survey, and the Alfred E. Alquist Seismic Safety Commission of California. The devastating loss of life inflicted by the 2011 Pacific tsunami in Japan, we marked just yesterday the one-year anniversary, and the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami in Southeast Asia remind us of the need for the millions of Californians who live, work, and visit California's coastal communities to be aware of tsunami hazard zones, evacuation routes, and warning systems. With hundreds of miles of coastline and an extremely active fault system, California is especially susceptible to the dangers of tsunamis, the effects of which were seen last March, with over $25 million in damage dealt to the Santa Cruz Harbor in my district, and millions more in damages inflicted on the harbors and fishing industries of Del Norte County, San Luis Obispo County, and other communities throughout the state of California. I ask that you join me in recognizing the importance of raising awareness of the potential dangers of tsunamis to California's coastline by proclaiming the week of March 25th through March 31st as California Tsunami Awareness Week. Ultimately, the thing our constituents rely on government the most for is preparation against natural disaster. Madam Speaker, I would ask that the first roll be opened for co-authors, and I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Asajian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of ACR 114, a resolution that will promote tsunami awareness along our state's coast. Last year's tsunami served as a reminder about the importance of being prepared for emergencies. Given their unpredictable nature, awareness is vital to all Californians, especially to those who call our coastline home. I do appreciate Member Monning's efforts in bringing this resolution forward, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Furutani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. Mr. Monning, thank you very much for this bill, and I rise in support of ACR 114. Very timely this last weekend. Many communities, particularly in California, honored those that were perished in the tidal wave and the tsunami that is a part of Japan on March 11th, 2011. The events that we've had throughout the community, particularly in the Japanese American community, really showed the concern and the generosity of the American people toward their sisters and brothers in Japan. But the issue of being prepared, the issue of having sort of an object lesson in the devastation of what a tsunami can do, the reality that tsunami, although a Japanese word, is now a part of the American lexicon, is true relative to the impact and the kind of devastation that it can visit on any community. So greatly appreciate your bill and stand in support of it as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize for getting up to speak on two resolutions in a row, but it just so happens that these are two that both hit very close to home. The previous one on multiple sclerosis and this one on tsunamis, because a year ago, when the Japanese earthquake happened, The worst, the community that was impacted the worst in California was the city of Crescent City, which had the entire harbor wiped out and was shut down and out of business. And by the way, it's in the process of reopening, and a lot of the crab you eat at your tables is because fishing boats are now moored in Crescent City Harbor once again. But the point I want to make is that awareness really does matter, and continuing to support putting the warning systems in place and keeping them in place is really critical. Because what was most important about the effect of the tsunami, because Crescent City has faced many of them in the past, some of them devastating, killing dozens of people, not one life was lost because they had the early warning system in place. They took advantage of it. Everybody did their job. And while there was huge property damage, nobody was hurt. And actually, the boats themselves were able, because of the warning, to go out to sea and ride it out. Now, they had to leave because the harbor wasn't there after the tsunami passed. They had to go to other ports, but they're now coming home. But those boats weren't destroyed and no lives were lost. So we need to continue our efforts to improve our warning systems along the coast. We need to remember that we have, as my colleague Mr. Monning pointed out, similar geological circumstances immediately off our coast that Japan has off of its coast that caused that quake. And if we had that same tsunami here, we would experience similar devastating results. And we absolutely need to take this threat seriously for our economy, for the lives of our citizens, for the well-being of our community. So I urge your aye vote.
Ms. Harkey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I also urge an aye vote on this. And one of the things that I would like to point out is that we are in the ring of fire. We do have an active, or not an active, but we do have a fault, very dangerous, could be, on our coastline. We know that. We deal with earthquakes in California on a regular basis. What we don't have is a tsunami as yet. And I would hope that if anything ever occurred like that in our state or in our country, we would react with the same manner that the Japanese reacted. The calm, the taking care of each other, and actually uniting behind, the people and the government and trying to put this back on track. It has been a phenomenal feat and something that's kind of been ignored in our country. We heard about the tsunami, but not the rehabilitation that these people have been through, and virtually very stoic and in the typical fashion of just uniting and putting their country back together again. I think that we can tell by their economic revival that they are actually putting this behind them. They had a slow climb out of a recession that went on and on and on, but now with this on top of it, I had expected them to be decimated for years, the country of Japan, and they are not. They have bounced back miraculously through a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and a lot of devotion to each other and to rebuilding their nation. And I think that that's very much a source of pride for the Japanese Americans here. Thank you.
Ms. Yamada.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I, too, rise in support of ACR 114 and thank Mr. Monning for bringing this forward. And to follow up on all of the comments that have already been made on the floor, particularly Mr. Furutani, I want to just say that I do have a close personal connection to what occurred in Sendai. My father's ancestral village, Shiroishi, is in Miyagi-Ken, and although he would be 109 today, I know that our family's connections to that region continue. Also, I did want to point out on behalf of the Consul General of Japan in San Francisco, Mr. Hiroshi Inomata, he published a letter of thanks to the Sacramento region that appeared yesterday in the Sacramento Bee editorial section, letters to the editor. And it is with the sense that any event that occurs anywhere in our world can impact us here as well. So we want to just reinforce the interconnectivity of humanity and express our thanks for all of the support that has been given from this country to our friends in Japan. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Monning asks for the first roll to be open for co-authors. First roll open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. It's for co-authors. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. There are 71 co-authors, and we can take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. This concludes the business on the daily file. We will now move to adjourn in memories and announcements. The following members were recognized for adjourn in memories today: Mr. Williams, Mr. Nestandi, and Mr. V. Manuel Perez. Mr. Williams.
Members, Madam Speaker, I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to never have a close friend pass away until now. On Thursday, one of my most important supporters and a longtime friend, Selma Rubin, passed away after battling cancer for about a year and a half. She really was one of those people, and I know that many of you have them in your district, but someone who is a dynamo. She was almost 97 years of age and still served on a host of nonprofit boards, and always as their treasurer, the one that needed to do the most work. She was really one of the matriarchs of our environmental movement, a woman that was a homemaker, but had too much to give to remain a homemaker, and also helped found some of our most important economic justice organizations. She was one of those people that would tell you always the harsh truth and always tell it straight to your face, whether she thought what you were doing was right or wrong. She would let you know. She once told me that it wasn't okay if I didn't run for something. I won't tell you what it is. She said her words were, "Das Williams, we're not through with you yet." And she was one of those people that you listen to. She relished many community victories over the years, saving El Capitan. Many of you have passed that on the 101, as well as many other special places, including the Elwood Bluffs, the Carpinteria Bluffs, and the Douglas Family Preserve. She even has a trail named after her near El Capitan Campground. She reminded us always to have the integrity and speak the truth, not to give up, and to be guided by our principles. She was and will continue to be an inspiration for us all. I ask that you adjourn in her memory.
Mr. Nestandi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. I would like to adjourn in memory of Richard Milanovich. The passing of Chairman Milanovich is a great loss to the Agua Caliente Band of Kuya Indians and to our Coachella Valley community. I believe Chairman Milanovich will be remembered as one of the most influential political leaders in California's history. His service on the Tribal Council started as a member in 1978. He served as secretary from 1982 to 84 when he was then elected Tribal Council chairman. At the time of his passing, Chairman Milanovich had served for nearly a quarter century. The tribe has been very integral to our local economy, and Mr. Milanovich oversaw many projects that invigorated the Palm Springs and Coachella economy. His service went beyond the Agua Caliente Band of Kuya Indians. He served as the chairman of the advisory committee to the Office of Special Trustee for the U.S. Department of Interior. Additionally, he served the Native American Stewardship Committee for the Autry National Center, the Bureau of Land Management's California Desert Advisory Council, and the Native American Heritage Commission. Chairman Milanovich represented the tribe on the Coachella Valley Association of Governments Executive Committee. He founded the Santa Rosa Scenic Committee, served as a member of the Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy, and was appointed a member of the National Monument Advisory Board for the San Jacinto and Santa Rosa National Monument. Chairman Milanovich was an exemplary citizen who also served our country in the United States Army from 1960 to 1963. I met Chairman Milanovich in 1994, and I was able to watch him the years following as he navigated the tribe's compact through some very tough political waters. And he did a fantastic job for the tribe and for Indian nations around the United States. But what the lesson I learned from Chairman Milanovich, as his stature grew and as the tribe's stature grew, meeting with governors and presidents, for all those successes, what grew even more for Richard Milanovich was his humility. It grew more and more each time I had met him. And I think we can all learn from that. Humility is one of the greatest human qualities that we can achieve. Our community will miss this great man. His servant's heart, his lifelong commitment to our community, and all the work he did for our region. The chairman is survived by his wife, Melissa, and children Tammy, Travis, Sean, Scott, Reed, and Tristan, along with the 5 grandchildren. We will all miss him.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'd like to also echo the comments made by Representative Assemblymember Brian Estandi on behalf of Tribal Chairman Mr. Milanovic. This weekend, we lost a visionary. Mr. Milanovic was a fearless, diplomatic, and beloved leader of his tribal nation and Native American country nationally. In any form of government, whether at the local, county, state, federal, or tribal level, if you have quality professional leadership at your base, a sense of order and stability will always prevail. This is the case in point for the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians. Chairman Milanovic, through his dedication, humility, integrity, and professionalism, guided a positive and stable government that engaged actively within our local community. He was a teacher and mentor who dedicated himself to the economic, political, and cultural advancement of his tribe. The passing of this great leader is a huge loss to the state of California, to the Coachella Valley, to our society. My thoughts and prayers go out to the Milanovic family and all those who knew him. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. The session schedule is as follows: Tuesday, March 13th, check-in session; Wednesday, March 14th, check-in session; Thursday, March 15th, floor session at 9 a.m. Friday, March 16th, no session, no check-in. There will be a Republican caucus in the members' lounge immediately following the adjournment of session. The Rules Committee will be meeting in the Rules Committee room immediately following adjournment. It is also Mr. Chuck Calderon, Majority Leader's birthday today, so happy birthday. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Allen moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, March 15th at 9 a.m. Quorum calls lifted.